the colonial era was broken, we can say. So post-colonialism in that sense is a theory which is uh, after 1950. In If you look at the syllabus of NET, you will see that it's a theory post 1950. In that regard, we can say that it's a theory which is post 1950, especially when the colonialism as a process was finished, or should I say stopped, then we say the reaction against colonialism was what we call as post colonialism. Okay, so for example, if I would say that, say for example, in colonialism, what is colonialism? Colonialism is a sense of exploitation. Okay, it was a expansionist policy with the basic purpose of which was a sense of exploitation. Okay, so in that sense, we can say that colonialism was the very important uh, the development that occurred in the history of human evolution. Now, when we talk about post-colonialism, post-colonialism is actually a reaction or a rebellion against the colonial identity or against the colonial policies of the colonizer. So it's a kind of reaction, a rebel against attitude against, ठीक है, the colonial powers, against the colonial powers. So in a way, it is also a challenge against the colonial superiority. It's a challenge against the colonial attitudes of, नोट कर लेना जैसे बता रहा हूँ, it's a challenge against the colonial attitudes even after the colonizers have left, even after the colonizers had left the colony. colonizer ने जब कॉलोनी को छोड़ दिया, उसके बाद भी जो उनका एटीट्यूड था, उसको हम पोस्ट कॉलोनिज्म कहते हैं। ठीक है, तो अगर हम बात करें पोस्ट कॉलोनिज्म की, तो एक सम मेजर मोमेंट्स जो हैं पोस्ट कॉलोनिज्म के काफी इंपॉर्टेंट हैं, एग्जाम में आएंगे। अगर हम कहें, एक डिफरेंस हम लोग देख सकते हैं, डिफरेंस बिटवीन कॉलोनियलिज्म एंड इंपीरियलिज्म। ठीक है, सारे बच्चे देख लेंगे, इंपीरियलिज्म बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, कॉलोनियलिज्म और इंपीरियलिज्म के बीच में डिफरेंस क्या है। देखिए, इंपीरियलिज्म बेसिकली एम्पायर से बना है एंड इट इज रिलेटेड टू द कंसोलिडेशन ऑफ एन एम्पायर। सो इंपीरियलिज्म में अगर हम बेसिक थॉट देखें उसके प्रोसेस का, तो इट इज अ सॉलिडेरिटी विद एन एम्पायर। ठीक है, विद एन एम्पायर, सॉलिडेरिटी मीन्स एक निष्ठा। ठीक है, तो एम्पायर के साथ अगर हम सॉलिडेरिटी दिखाते हैं, और हम कह सकते हैं अ टाइप ऑफ इंटरनेशनल मोनार्की। ठीक है, ऐसी ऐसी मोनार्की जो कि अब अपने स्टेट से निकलकर इंटरनेशनली, जिसे हम कह सकते हैं हमारी जो है सत्यनिष्ठा, अगर किसी मोनार्क के लिए होने लग जाए तो वो इम्पीरियलिज्म है। और कॉलोनियलिज्म में क्या है, ये मैं एनसीईआरटी की डेफिनेशन से उठ के आपको बता रहा हूँ। कॉलोनियलिज्म इज अ expansionist policy where the colonizer expansionist policy where the colonizer inhabits the where the colonizer जो कि कॉलोनी में इन्वेस्टमेंट करता है, colonizer invades, ठीक है, द रिसोर्सेज, या एक्सप्लॉइट्स कर सकते हैं हम यहाँ पर, इन्वेड्स की जगह एक्सप्लॉइट लिखना ज्यादा बेटर रहेगा यहाँ पर, एक्सप्लॉइट्स। ठीक है, द रिसोर्सेज, जिसे हम एक वर्ड एनसीईआरटी का यूज करता है इसके लिए, साइफनिंग ऑफ द रिसोर्सेज, SIPHONING, साइफनिंग ऑफ द रिसोर्सेज। ठीक है, तो रिसोर्सेज की साइफनिंग ऑफ जो है उसको हम कहते हैं ड्रेनिंग आउट द रिसोर्सेज, ड्रेनिंग आउट ऑफ वेल्थ इज कॉल्ड एज imperialism, राइट। सो अब imperialism में अगर हम बात करें, तो साइफनिंग आउट ऑफ द रिसोर्सेज जो होती हैं वो 3 लेवल्स पर होती हैं। क्या क्या होती हैं बेटा? एक तो होता है हम जिसे कह सकते हैं कल्चरल एक्सप्लॉयटेशन। ठीक है, कल्चरल एक्सप्लॉयटेशन। फिर एक होता है मेटेरियलिस्टिक एक्सप्लॉयटेशन, इंटरनेशनल एक्सप्लॉय सॉरी ये आपका मिलिट्री एक्सप्लॉयटेशन, ज्योग्राफिकल एक्सप्लॉयटेशन भी हम इसको कह सकते हैं। जगह कोई आपने अपना बना लिया, जैसे हम देखते हैं कि 1857 के बाद हुआ, इंडिया को ब्रिटिश एम्पायर का ही पार्ट बना दिया गया। ठीक है, तो ये भी तो पहला कल्चरल एक्सप्लॉयटेशन, मटेरियलिस्टिक एक्सप्लॉयटेशन में आपका फाइनेंशियल ड्रेनेज हो गया, या फिर यहाँ की रिसोर्सेज जो कि मटेरियलिस्टिक रिसोर्सेज हैं उनका ड्रेनेज हो गया। एंड द थर्ड इज मिलिट्री या कॉलोनियल ज्योग्राफिकल एक्सप्लॉयटेशन। तो अगर हम देखें कि कॉलोनिज्म इज एन एक्सपेंशनिस्ट पॉलिसी, so I hope the difference is clear between colonialism and imperialism, right? So imperialism on one hand is mainly an international monarchical system where the empire try to establish its loyalty or solidarity with one monarch or with an emperor or with an empire, whereas colonialism is more of a business kind of mentality, where where colonizer invades the colony and trying to draining out or siphoning off the resources with using cultural exploitation. Cultural exploitation में आपका लैंग्वेज का एक्सप्लॉयटेशन आ गया, लिटरेचर का एक्सप्लॉयटेशन आ गया, ठीक है, आपके कल्चरल रिसोर्सेज का ड्रेनेज हो गया, ठीक है। मटेरियलिस्टिक में आपका जितना भी मटेरियलिस्टिक एक्सप्लॉयटेशन, और मिलिट्री आपको पता ही है ज्योग्राफिकल एक्सप्लॉयटेशन हो गया, ठीक है। तो अब जो अकॉर्डिंग टू थिंकर्स जो है कोलोनिज्म के थ्री फेजेस हैं जो कि बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। थ्री फेजेस ऑफ कोलोनिज्म ओवर द ह्यूमन हिस्ट्री चले, थ्री फेजेस ऑफ कोलोनिज्म बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है ये भी। थ्री फेजेस ऑफ कोलोनिज्म जो है हिस्ट्री में कौन कौन से चले, क्या क्या इसके दौर हैं, इसको देखते हैं। आइए, जो थ्री फेजेस ऑफ कोलोनिज्म में है, इसमें पहला फेज है 1492 से लेकर हम कह सकते हैं मिड 18 सेंचुरी यानी कि 1750। दिस इज द फर्स्ट फेज। देन 1750 से लेकर 1919 तक, जिसको हम कह सकते हैं सेकेंड फेज, यानी कि हम कह सकते हैं फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर के एंड तक। और फिर हम ये कह सकते हैं कि 1920 से लेकर 1950 तक हम मोटा मोटा अपने लिए कह सकते हैं दिस इज द थर्ड फेज ऑफ कोलोनिज्म। थ्री फेजेस ऑफ कॉलोनिज्म आपके आ जाएंगे, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है गाइस ये। अब आप देखेंगे यहाँ पर कि जो हमारा फर्स्ट फेज ऑफ कॉलोनिज्म है, इसमें हम देख रहे हैं कि कोलंबस ने डिस्कवर किया अमेरिका, यहाँ से लेकर मिड 18 सेंचुरी तक है ये। तो हम ये कह सकते हैं कि हम मोटा मोटा अपने समझने के लिए कह सकते हैं 16th टू 18 सेंचुरी कह सकते हैं हम इसको, मिड 18 सेंचुरी, 16 टू मिड 18 सेंचुरी। फिर ये आ गया आपका मिड 18th सेंचुरी टू एंड ऑफ फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर, एंड ऑफ WW1। और फिर ये क्या हो गया आपका, जिसको हम कह सकते हैं इंटर वॉरियर्स टिल 1950, जिसमें आपका सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर भी आ गया, इंक्लूडिंग, जैसे लिखा रहा हूँ वैसे लिखेंगे, इंक्लूडिंग सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर विच इज फ्रॉम 1939 टू 1945। नोट कर लेंगे सारे बच्चे। Our discussion. So now, before understanding post-colonialism, we need to understand certain terms. Like one term is tricontinent. This is a very important term, and tricontinent is a term which is often used, and in fact, this term has a huge significance for our post-colonial literature. So, tricontinent is actually, it refers to the continent of three. Basically, three continents are collectively called as tricontinent. One is Africa, Asia, and Latin America. These are the three major continents which are clubbed together and are called as tricontinent. Earlier, the colonizer used to call them as third world literature. That's why post-colonial literature is sometime in its early phases was called as third world literature. But nowadays we avoid using this term third world because it connotes a kind of misrepresentation. It indicates that there is still an inequality between colonizer and colonized, whereas post-colonialism is all about the equality standard, maintaining the same intellectual pedestal as the colonizers. Okay, so that's why instead of third world we use the word tricontinent. And post-colonialism is said to begin with the launching of the journal called as Tricontinental, a very important journal called as Tricontinental. This is sometimes called as the foundational moment of post-colonialism. Tricontinental. This is a magazine, this is a journal which was founded by Heaven Tricontinental, HAVAN, Heaven Tricontinental, 1966. Heaven Tricontinental at this is the name of the organization who founded this journal. ये इसका नाम ये journal है. This is the name of a journal magazine. It was founded by this organization Heaven Tricontinental and in the year at नहीं होगा इन होगा यहाँ पर फिर in 1966. ठीक है. And who called this as a founding moment of post-colonialism? Founding moment of post-colonialism, Robert Young. Okay. Robert Young called this as a founding moment of post-colonialism. Robert Young himself is a very important internationally renowned scholar of post-colonialism. So please do Google Robert Young and note down all his works as a homework. So it is also called as Tricontinental. This magazine is called as the first international, or first global alliance of, you can write, it is called as the first global alliance of three continents. So some famous landmarks of post-colonial work. Landmark works of post-colonialism. Short में PC लिखते रहे. Okay, very important. So number one is Edward Said's Orientalism. Very important work. Edward Said, a Palestinian scholar. Note down this very important work, Orientalism. It's considered as a foundational text of post-colonialism. Came on 1970. The second work is Homi. This work came out in 1990. Third writer is Homi Ke Bhabha. Homi Ke Bhabha, a very important writer. Narration also occurred in 1990. Guys, these three works is known as the Holy Trinity. ये तीन वर्क जो हैं इसको क्या कहते हैं? होली ट्रिनिटी ऑफ पोस्ट कॉलोनियलिज्म. थ्री राइटर्स को होली ट्रिनिटी ऑफ पोस्ट कॉलोनियलिज्म कहते हैं हम. थ्री राइटर्स, साइड, स्पिवाक एंड होमी के भावा, जिसमें से एडवर्ड साइड इज फ्रॉम पैलेस्टीन एंड गायत्री स्पिवाक द एम्पायर राइट्स बैक वाली, एंड होमी के भावा नेशन एंड नरेशन. इसके अलावा भी बहुत सारे वर्क्स जो लिखे हैं इन्होंने, मिमिक्री और इस तरह के बहुत सारे टर्म्स को कॉइन किया गाइस. तो ये जो है हम लोग देख रहे हैं. तो होमी के भाभा एक्चुअली इज अ पोस्ट colonial critic. नोट कर लेंगे, इज अ पोस्ट colonial critic who has written the maximum number of works. He has created most technical terms in post colonialism. Just for our understanding, we can write Homi ke Bhabha, right? Now, there is also one more work which is highly important, and it is the Empire Writes Back. This is written by three writers: Bill Ashcroft, very important writer, Bill Ashcroft, Gareth Griffiths, and Helen Tiffin. We have got the fifth writer, very important writer again. These are all writers are for your MA English level, at your PhD level, at your not only for NET, for SLETs. These writers are very important. Like, very important writer Franz Fanon is known for two works: The Wretched of the Earth, Black Skin White Mask, came in the year 1950, and The Wretched of the Earth appeared in 1961, and The Empire Writes Back. It's also a very important work. Guys, The Empire Writes Back is also important in the sense because This work was written by the Britishers. All these writers, if you see, Edward Said was a Palestinian scholar, Gayatri Spivak is an Indian, Homi K. Bhabha is an Indian, and Franz Fanon, as I have discussed, he is from Caribbean islands. You can write his nationality. Especially in net exams, SLET exams, the nationalities are important because many times you are dealing with uh, not only English author, but the authors from international level. So Caribbean, he's a Caribbean post-colonial critic, Franz Fanon. Especially the Black Skin and White Mask was his dissertation that he submitted while doing his PhD, and it became one of the iconic works of post-colonialism. So, guys, what I am saying is that Franz Fanon is associated with one more writer. Let me write his name first. His name was M.A. Césaire. Okay, M.A. Césaire. And then there is Leopold Senghor. Leopold Senghor. Senghor. Leopold Senghor comes from Senegal. Comes from Senegal. And Césaire comes from, of course, again is from black community, African, French-speaking African black writer. Comes from an island called as Martinique Island. नोट करेंगे Martinique, Martinique Island. You can just write for your understanding Caribbean, 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 just like Franz Fanon also comes from Martinique Island, right? So MS Césaire, Martinique Island, Leopold Senghor, Senghor comes from Senegal. Now please pay attention here, guys, that these three writers, that is Fanon, Césaire, and Senghor, they all come from what is called as means they all form a very important movement of black solidarity international movement that is called as negritude. Please write it down as a very important movement. Negritude is called as one of the renaissance of French speaking blacks. French speaking blacks. Later on we see countries like Morocco got also associated with this very famous movement, French speaking blacks, especially in Africa and Caribbean islands. So it's called as Renaissance of French-speaking blacks, negritude, right? So it was related to black solidarity. The black, we know, were often treated as inferior slaves. So black solidarity, international movement, and these three writers, Fanon, Césaire, and Senghor. Senghor actually was the founder of Senegal. He became the first president of Senegal as a nation. This question may be asked that out of the negritude movement, which new country was created? So it was Senegal, which was created as an outcome of this very important movement called as negritude. Now, whenever I teach negritude, I always connect it to Harlem Renaissance. Very important movement, guys. Harlem Renaissance is called as the first great Renaissance of blacks in America, right? Harlem is a place in America. So Harlem Renaissance, Harlem ki Kranti, very important topic for our preparation of all exams. Harlem Renaissance, it occurred in the blacks of America. Okay, blacks of America. It's a very important topic, guys. Harlem Renaissance, especially net and SLED students, please pay attention. You can just Google it, or also you can use M.H. Abrahams. It's a very important glossary of literary terms by M.H. Abraham. So M.H. Abrahams, because he himself was an American, so he has done a lot of good research on American literature. So you can just go for this book, Glossary of Literary Terms. I highly recommend this book for all competitive aspirants, especially preparing for NET. This book, Glossary of Literary Terms, is a must buy for all aspirants. Please buy it as soon as possible. Glossary of Literary Terms, and don't just buy it, don't just put it as a showpiece. Read it all and you know understand it, assimilate it, and then you will understand the importance of what I am trying to say. So M.H. Abraham's Harlem Renaissance is called as the Renaissance of the Blacks of America. In which decade it came? It came in 1920s and 1930s. This is a very important information, guys. Langston Hughes was one of the important leader of this Renaissance of America, of blacks in America. Langston Hughes, Hughes. There were many writers. Okay, Langston Hughes was one of them. So you can just find it out further on this topic. Okay, ठीक है. तो ये हो गया आपका. तो जो मेजर, अगर हम थिंकर्स की बात करें तो उसमें ये एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट नाम मैंने आपको बता दिया. तो आई थिंक दिस इज इट फॉर टुडे, जस्ट अ शॉर्ट स्नैपशॉट ऑफ व्हाट वी लर्न टुडे, ऑल अबाउट पोस्ट colonialism. So